समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
आप समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Even as a reporter who over 30 years has seen war, riots, calamities, battlefields, this was one of the toughest interviews that I've ever done. I had the opportunity to meet with the ailing and aging father of Captain Sumeet Sabharwal, the commander of Air India 171 that crashed seconds after takeoff in June. Since the crash, Captain Sabharwal's father has been fighting to get to the bottom of how and why the plane crashed. He's also fighting for the reputation of his son, who has been engulfed by controversy with speculative reports, particularly in Western media, pointing a finger of blame at him. The pilot community in India and even the Supreme Court has rubbished these allegations. Supreme Court judges said in open court that nobody believed that Captain Sumeet Sabharwal was responsible for the Air India 171 crash. But the father, alongside the Federation of Pilots and other pilot communities, have petitioned the Supreme Court for a fresh probe. The current probe panel has been mired in controversy. I finally was able to meet with Captain Sabharwal's ailing father, and I am humbled that he trusted me with his pain. As I said, it was one of the toughest interviews that I've had to do. The raw pain of seeing this older man, this elderly man, sitting by himself in his barely furnished Mumbai flat. On the walls of that flat were the photographs of his son and his wife, both of whom are no longer alive, and watching his spirit, his grit, his determination to fight for his son. He cried and I cried too. And if you watch his interview, you will cry too. These are the images of Sumeet's funeral. We all saw these images and we were devastated by them. But when I met him, I was just so overwhelmed by his courage, by his quiet dignity, by his determination to get to the bottom of what caused the plane to crash. And as I was leaving, he put his hand on my head and he said, "Sukhi raho, jeete raho." And that opened a floodgate of tears for me, because even in his moment of grief, he found it within himself to think about me, to actually console me as I cried with him and for all those who died on board Air India 171. We'll be playing out excerpts of that interview in this program. The full interview is on our platform. This Mojo Story exclusive is something that is difficult viewing, but essential viewing. And I request and urge all of you to watch it. I want to introduce our panel of experts today as we look at the ramifications of the father having spoken. One of the very important things he shared with me was Sumeet's last words to him. And those words are important testimony. They also debunk in many ways the suggestion and the whispers of suicide. You will hear the father talking about this in a moment from now. Let me introduce our panel of very distinguished experts today. Captain Amit Singh joins us. He's a fellow with the Royal Aeronautical Society. He's also a founder of the Safety Matters Foundation. Welcome to the program, Captain Singh. He's also one of the petitioners in the court. Also joining me is another aviation expert, Captain Ehsan Khalid. Captain Khalid is the founder of Aviation 1903 at the DLF Mall. Welcome to the program, sir. And also joining me is Captain C.S. Randhawa of the Federation of Pilots. He is, of course, been alongside Captain Sabharwal's father in petitioning the Supreme Court. Before we start, I want to play out this excerpt from my meeting with Captain Sumeet Sabharwal's 91-year-old father. This is an excerpt. The longer conversation is about 20 minutes long. It's already up on our platform, and I urge you all to watch it. But take a look. It's heartbreaking, but it's important. So sorry for your loss.
खुश रहे बेटे, शुक्र है, and keep meeting us. Two people came to condole
From the probe panel.
panel. They
Yes.
said that we are the investigators.
Yes.
One of them said that he had a suicidal tendency. This had hurt me like hell. And that I tell you for everybody, because you are also a passenger.
Yes, it impacts all of us.
One day he said, Papa, I'm going for the flight and I'll call you from Gatwick.
Yeah.
Very happily and good.
That day,
That day, I said, all the best, beta. Take care of your flight. But that's not the last words with me.
these images devastated India. 91-year-old Pushkar Raj Sabharwal at the funeral of his son, Sumeet. Captain Sumeet Sabharwal was the commander of the Air India 171 plane that crashed seconds after takeoff from Ahmedabad. Six months later, Pushkar Raj sits all alone, the portrait of his dead son and wife framing the bare walls of his simply furnished Mumbai flat. His hands are wrinkled and gently trembling, his eyes brimming with pain, but his spirit is determined. When I knock on the door hesitantly, I am about to meet him for the first time. I bow with folded hands. There's nothing I can say to make him feel better. He first, then I, burst into quiet tears almost immediately. I'm so sorry. My heart is breaking for you. This is the story of an aging father's brave and exemplary fight for truth and justice. I don't have words to express my condolences, but I'll try. I did not know your son, but somehow his tragic death feels very personal. And I only hope that justice is done and the truth comes out. And I want to thank you with folded hands for agreeing to talk to me in your time of grief. If I can call you uncle, because I don't know what else to call you. So I'm going to call you uncle.
And call you Betty.
You must call me Betty. I would be honored. Uncle, this is such a difficult time for you. As a parent, you've lost your child. And then there is the public speculation, the slander, the smear campaigns, the whispers. एक तरफ बेटा गया और दूसरी तरफ people are trying to blame him. How are you coping with this moment?
You can understand I'm in a shock. And never decent people in my time, they always were considerate at such occasions and all that.
Yeah.
But I was forced to say something at that time, that at that time I realized that he's no more. But I had to fight for his popularity as a dedicated and a professional flyer, as a pilot. I think his colleagues can tell better than me what sort of a person, a cozy person he was. He was calm and quiet, always.
Yes.
Oh, that is so. I had to keep and pray Almighty that the proceedings should be just and fair, and he should get the justice.
How are you finding the strength? You're in your 90s, you've lost your child. आपका strength कहाँ से मिलता है आपको?
When a person is forced into such a condition, it is natural. You can say, if Almighty is there, who is responsible for it, I have to pick him up and make him speak.
You have, of course, taken your fight to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And you are asking in the petition for a fresh independent inquiry, court monitored. What made you go to the court at this stage of your life?
What I was finding that the people who are responsible for the crash, they are very powerful.
Mm.
And they had started blaming my son, that he's sole responsible. A crash is not the responsibility of the pilot, but it can be the equipment.
Yeah.
Equipment, the maintenance, equipment, the many other things. Because I had been an air traffic controller and I had been very, I can say, meeting the people. They were coming and expressing their problems and solutions from me. I was in DGCA for some time.
You were?
I retired about 22. It is almost...
I didn't know you were in DGCA.
It is 33 years back. So, those people who had joined at my time of retirement, they also must have retired. And I'm back.
Yeah. So you do understand, therefore, this space. You're not speaking as a parent alone. You have actually, as you said, been in air traffic control. You've been in DGCA. So you have some understanding, actually, of these issues. Very fine understanding of these issues. Then.
True.
That's important. And I think it's important for the public also to know this. I want to ask you, I have seen your communication with the pilots' bodies. You wrote a very strongly worded email to the Federation of Pilots, where you took head on some of the speculation, some of the rumors. I was very overwhelmed by your strength. You know, there were whispers about your son's divorce, the loss of his mother. People were joining the dots and suggesting, इस वजह से सुमीत ने ये किया होगा या वो किया होगा. And you took those rumors head on and you said, this is all nonsense. What made it so important for you to address this and reassert your son's reputation? You know, not many people are willing to take these whispers head on in the way that you did.
The story was like this. Two people came to condole.
From the probe panel.
They said that we are the investigators.
Yes.
But while talking and all that, this we are sharing and we are doing this thing and all that. But suddenly, one of them said that he had a suicidal tendency. This had hurt me like hell. I told him that he was a professional pilot and a well experienced, and he knew his job very well.
Yes.
And it is incorrect.
Very difficult viewing, very, very difficult viewing. As I said, it was difficult, and in a way, Captain Sabharwal's father had more courage than I did in this moment. And if you can see that he takes on everything head on. He talks about the whispers of suicide. He talks about how members of the probe panel came on the pretext of offering condolences, but then started pointing fingers at his son. And he spoke about, very importantly, Captain Sumeet's last phone call to him, about sounding happy, sounding cheerful, talking about how he was going to call his father from Gatwick, which is where the plane was meant to land, and unfortunately that was not to be. Let me open this up for first comments before we get to the technical dimensions of this conversation and the latest Wall Street Journal report that talks about an internal spat. Let's focus on this brave man, for 2 minutes. I'll start with you. I'll start with you, Captain Amit Singh. You're also in court. He's also in court. Captain Randhawa for the Federation of Pilots is also in court. When you hear a 91-year-old man, I mean, in the twilight of his life, this is now his battle. And one of the things he said to me was, he said, "This is not about my son alone, beta. This is about passengers. If you don't get to the truth, none of you are safe." And that really stayed with me. Captain Amit, your thoughts, sir?
Well, I would like to say that hats off to him. He was so calm and composed, and especially when narrating the fact that the two investigators spoke to him, blaming his son uh, with suicidal tendencies, and he didn't retort or get angry or something. He was very calm. So that is something which is out of the world. You cannot, only a brave person who has come to terms and who has very clear thinking that what is his aim now. And that is very clear that the safety of passengers and the future uh, airline safety needs to be addressed at a larger scale. It is not about this accident. This accident is a catalyst. It will trigger more people to think, or the larger public to think about safety. When you view it from the outside and you do not have too many technical details, it is only the narrative uh, which has been drawn initially that is being thrust upon you. And you are very clear that no, my son is not like that, because you know him. And when he has called him and told him specifically that I'll call you from Gatwick, and he has been taking care of him for so long, then that connect is there. The belief is there. So you cannot break the belief. So it is for the public to come out in the open now and address this issue, forcing the government to take or relook at in which direction is the investigation going on. And it is not just Mr. Sabharwal, but all the passengers, the passengers who have been who have left behind families and near and dear ones. So there are so many of them who need to be addressed in the same manner. So the thing multiplies, and there has been no communication ever since the accident happened. There is a family assistance program, and the near and dear ones need to know what happened and why it happened. But if the negative connotation is set up, then the trust breaks down between the people in the organization and within the families. So
Absolutely.
that is causing the whole problem.
Captain Randhawa, as I said, the FIP is in court, so is Sumeet's father. But hearing him talk like this in a tactile, raw way, and as a Captain Amit points out, that even when he's recounting it, to me and to millions of people through this interview, he is calm, he is collected. He says it hurt him like hell to hear it, but he shut them down. And he took on all of the whispers head on. He took on the whispers, in fact, in a communication originally to the Federation of Pilots only, about Sumeet's divorce, about Sumeet's mother's death. He said it hurt him like hell, but he was going to and determined to rubbish it. What did you feel when you heard Pushkar Raj Sabharwal talking?
Barkha, since this thing happened on 30th of August, we were aware of this situation, and these two gentlemen from the AAIB board had visited his father's residence. I came to know through Jalwai Vihar, where he stays, through the security people, that this thing had happened, and they were told to leave, and they were instructed not to let anyone come without permission. Now, it is very, very pertinent that such things being carried out by the investigation team into the accident and coming to conclusions. We have been raking this issue right from day one, that after this episode happened, that we have no faith in the AAIB. And that is why the judicial probe has to be carried out. Why should first of all, what action has the government of India or or the AAIB taken against them, there is no action against these people. There is no action against the AAIB. The AAIB DG should have been sacked for carrying out an investigation of this nature. This is not the way the investigation is carried out. This is very, really hurting, and the father is very calm. Had I been in that situation, I would have been extremely aggressive, whether it was with the government, because it is very pertinent for the public of the country to know the truth.
So you believe, Captain Randhawa, that not just is the probe panel discredited, you believe there should be action against it.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Do you carry out the investigations like this? You come and without any evidence, you start accusing the son of having suicidal tendencies just because he had a divorce many years back. Thousands of people have divorces in every walk of life, even the politicians, even the bureaucrats. So do they go and commit suicides? No. Secondly, the most important thing is that I have trained this boy on the 310 in command training. I have done part of his training on the 777. He was very calm, quiet, very, very, very sorted out person. So the father has also communicated that last talk which he had with the son, which is recorded, which is an evidence.
Yeah.
And he said he will again call up, which he used to do whenever he would go for flight. He would call up the father from the airport or from the aircraft, and again call up the father from the hotel, because he was too concerned. Father was staying all alone, and he was the only son who was taking care of the father. He would not go and commit a suicide. So I have been against this allegation in the foreign media, in the Indian media when it came up, and one Indian captain who tried to again hoodwink Captain Ranganathan. We issued a legal notice to him. We are against such a probe. That is why we have no faith in the probe being carried out by the AAIB, and we went to Supreme Court. We made the father agree to sign the Wakalatnama, and we went to Supreme Court. Now, all the cases, that is our case and with Amit's case, that they've been combined in the last hearing. Unfortunately, the date has been given as 28th of January, which we are trying to prepone to December.
Yeah.
Because we cannot trust AAIB to suddenly come up with a final report before the Supreme Court gives any more judgment.
And to bring in Captain Khalid at this point, I really do think that it is important testimony that Captain Sabharwal's father shared with me about a very normal routine phone call that his son makes to him just before takeoff, saying, "I'm taking off, I'm going to call you from Gatwick." All seemed routine, all seemed calm, right? And you know, the calm and the fortitude with which this 91-year-old man is taking all this on, it really humbles, it should humble all of us, and it should wake up all of those for whom this is already a forgotten headline. Captain Khalid.
Very sad, and hats off to you, to Mr. Sabharwal, and to everyone who is in the court trying to find the truth. Actually, what people must understand is that why should AAIB be truthful? Why should there be truth at all? Is it because, we are taught to be moral? Why should there be truth? Okay. It's a very pertinent question. Is it very nice to be truthful? Actually, someone told me that there is no other way to live. If, let us say that AAIB, or for that matter, any investigation board, is not truthful. So in this case, they have two evidence. He had had a divorce 15 years back, and mother's death in 3 years. Will this AAIB make a recommendation that any pilot who has been divorced within last 15 years cannot be rostered? Or if there is a mother's death, 3 years, 1 year, or even 6 months cannot be rostered? What nonsense is going on in AAIB, I do not know. The person who made this statement to Mr. Sabharwal should be removed from the AAIB, and if that person is a decision maker in the AAIB, then this entire report should be rubbished. Okay, it is not just nice thing to be truthful. No, it is pretty nice not to be truthful, but there is no other way to live.
Yeah.
It is not a matter of Barkha being a passenger or not, because if we are not truthful, then nothing can work. It will not stand the test. Now look at this farce of a whole thing going on. I'm sure we have very learned lawyers. Okay, Indian Evidence Act 1872 section 32 lays a very strong emphasis on the dying man death statement. Dying statement of Sumit Agarwal. What was it? I didn't do it. What material evidence? What material evidence that AAIB has that he did it? What material evidence that AAIB has that he had suicidal tendencies? Look, he could have committed suicide. I don't care. Okay, he had tendencies is beyond the purview of AAIB, and it is they can hide all the facts, and inquiry can be in camera. No, nothing should be leaked out, I understand. But what was beyond this particular thing was his tendencies. So did he try to commit suicide 10 times before?
Yeah.
Did he jump through the balcony? If he did not, how did this? So, if he had a problem before the flight, that is not to be hidden. It should be in the public. Okay. So the AIB is taking hearsay and then going and talking to a 91-year-old man that your son had a suicidal tendency. How heartless, and what kind of pressure is that gentleman under to make such a statement? He also has a family. I'm sure he would have son, daughter, or someone. Okay, but what kind of a pressure is that AIB gentleman to make such a statement? I'm sure he's not heartless person, but he's being forced. What evidence do you want to know more? That this AIB needs to be talking on facts. What factual statement is there that he had tendency to commit suicide? His veins were cut before. Was he taking an anti-drug medicine, anti-depression medicine? Any pilot who is beyond 50 years of age, well, unfortunately, people will have their parents dying. And within 7 days, 8 days, they come back on flying. I challenge this AAIB to make a statement that the parents who die of the pilot should not be rostered for 6 months. Because it is pretty natural for a person to be depressed. I lost my mother 2 years back. Everyone would lose it, lose parents. Does it mean we are not fit to do work? We don't have family problems. We have family problems. I was there in America last 1 month doing a training with 21 international pilots. At least 3 times in that class, the instructor made remarks. There can be no safety features against the suicidal pilots. Can you imagine? 2 Indians seated in that class with 21 international pilots and everybody laughing. I don't know what references are being made. We can, very nice that, now after 1 year, 6 months, Supreme Court says that, nobody believes. Sorry, sir. International community believes it. And they are laughing at Indian pilots. I was there and not believing. What not believing? And I can't even defend ourselves, because it is the AAIB which said there is nothing technically wrong. If there is nothing technically wrong, they can probably come up with a statement that there is nothing technically wrong because they don't have anything to prove it. Similarly, they could have come up, there is nothing humanly wrong with the pilots also. We would accept an honest mistake. But no, they went on to come to a different conclusion when it was involving the pilot, that, technically there was nothing technically wrong, but this pilot had suicidal tendencies. What nonsense is going on? It just shames us.
Yeah, that's very passionately and I think rightfully spoken, that there's a space that is being created now for the international community to mock pilots. That is, no one who's divorced or lost a parent meant to fly a plane. Would the pro panel recommend this? Of course they wouldn't. Now I want to get to something else that's been in the headlines. As we're also overwhelmed by Sumeet's father speaking to us in that exclusive conversation, Captain Amit Singh, the Wall Street Journal, which was the first to point a finger at Sumeet, now reports that Indians and Americans clashed. right? And there's been jhagda happening in this probe process. What did you make of this report?
This is a highly dramatized version and could well end up in Bollywood for another movie in the next 3 months. But if something has to happen and something has to be reported, again, facts have to be presented. Any letters which have been issued to the Indian government or the other way around should have been quoted. It is again hearsay that they had access to the letter which was not sent.
I think Captain Khalid is trying to make some interjection briefly. Yes, Captain Khalid?
Clashed in investigation of deadly Air India crash. I can tell you who lost it. Right? There might be clash, but the outcome of that clash was very well known to the public, and it was once again where you were. You can start because we know the outcome of this clash and how strongly did we clash.
Okay, so you, in a way, you're saying that you're worried that the Americans are going to bully the Indian side.
Well, leave it to your judgment. Nothing wrong technically. After the clash, the outcome is very clear.
Okay, Amit, you want to complete your point, Captain Amit?
Yeah. So my point is that there is a debate about the decoding, downloading of the flight recorders.
Yes.
Now, the flight recorders, as per the investigation report, which is very cleverly worded, the second one was retrieved on 16th, and they were transported to Delhi on the 24th. In the meanwhile, on the 23rd, a lot of equipment came down from USA, the golden chassis and the cables, etc., to help in downloading. There have been certain releases issued by the PIB and certain statements made in the parliament. Now, if you collate all of them, then there is a gap in every statement. They don't match. IQ basically wants that if there has been an accident, first thing you recover the flight recorders because that clearly will give you an idea of what happened. And if it is affecting, if there is a technical issue or whatever, if it affects the 1,300 other Boeing 787s flying around the world, you must immediately inform everybody to take precautions so that an accident does not repeat. So the purpose of an accident is to ensure that another accident does not happen. And this was not done from 16th or rather 13th to 24th. The recorders were kept in Ahmedabad where there was no lab to open or decode, download, whatever. So evidence was kept deliberately, or I don't know for what reason, it was not opened. So public was put at risk for those very days till the data was not downloaded. Then who opened? So in Ahmedabad, where there is no lab, how did you determine that the flight recorders were damaged to an extent that equipment would be required? Because in April, a new lab was opened and there's a PIB release by the government which says a state-of-art lab was opened in Delhi, which can even download and rectify damaged flight recorders. So if we have the capability, then what was the need to procure equipment? And by just
and now we know that at least ALPA has said that in their meetings with the probe panel, it was confirmed that there has been some movement of these boxes to. Yeah.
Correct. So without opening the crash-proof boxes, how can you determine that the chip inside is damaged in Ahmedabad? So the equipment was definitely moved somewhere. Now there is, if both the parties, the Americans and Indians, are colluding, trying to deviate the issue that, or trying to prove that the box were in India and were not moved. So I don't know. I can't trust both of them because there are holes in both the statements. And further, if you analyze the statements given in the parliament and in the PIB, again, the black box and the contents of the black box, how did it get leaked? Because Wall Street Journal very clearly says that they have sourced it from the investigators who are attached with the investigation. And if it has to be secured, which even the Supreme Court says it is sensitive data and should not be released, then Indian authorities still haven't denied that it was not leaked, or the other way, that it is 100% secure. So there is no
Yeah.
communication to that effect.
Captain
So,
Randhawa, what stands out for you at this point with these reports of the investigators clashing? Captain Amit says there are holes in both statements. Captain Khalid says the power dynamic is, leaning one way, tilting one way. What do you say?
What Amit is saying, I absolutely agree with him, because two investigators who came from Americans, to decode and download the data of the DFDR, they came to Ahmedabad. Now, if you hear some of the recordings and all of various agencies, it comes to light that this was kept in Ahmedabad, the DFDRs. Why didn't they move to Delhi? Again, no answers have been given, and this was kept at a remote location. Now, these two Americans were taken to that remote location where all this data was being investigated. Now, why such an action was taken by the government of India and AIB? So there has been a clash, and the leak to the Wall Street Journal has been through these two gentlemen who had come from US, and they were the part of NDSP. So there is a nexus between what the foreign media and the leak of reports that cannot be denied. On the contrary, there has been not much action by the government of India. The government of India has been a silent spectator. When you made a lab in India which can decode and download the DFDRs, where was the necessity of getting foreign help? These answers have not been given, neither by the ministry nor by AIB.
What do you expect the government to be doing at this point? You say it's
The
been a silent spectator.
government has to ensure that you have the infrastructure to decode and download, and the DFDR. What is so difficult in downloading and decoding a DFDR? I don't understand. A CVR is very clear. You and me can just sit down, in last 45 minutes we can hear that, and we can write, and next 2 hours we will be able to get all the CVR download. So the total nonsense going on over here in AIB, because you don't have the competent people, first of all, which we have been right from day one. We are challenging, and we are saying the incompetent people carrying out the investigation. Annexure 13 and Doc 9756 is very clear, part 1, that you need to have the people on the investigation board of the AIB who are competent and who should fulfill the certain requirements. You see the 5 people who are there on the part of the AIB, 3 are DGCA personnel. What kind of inquiry is this? So there has to be a nexus between the NTSB. Of course, it's an American body, and of course it involves Boeing, and it involves Air India on our side, and it involves Government of India. So,
Right.
So there is a problem, and which needs to be investigated and sorted out. But unfortunately, I'm sorry to say that things which happen in my country, if the same accident would have occurred in the West or in America or Canada, similar things would have never happened.
Well, why do you say that? I mean, you have the Americans also here. It's the Western media that has actually pointed a finger at Captain Sumeet Sabharwal. It isn't the Indians. It is one Indian pilot.
See, Barkha, what happened in the Max crash in? To answer your question, what happened to the Max crash of Lion Air? They blame the captain, Indian captain again. Blame the captain very coolly, not knowing a second crash will happen. And when the public in Ethiopia was up in arms, then they came to know that there was a design fault in the Max. Now, similar things which we have been saying on the Boeing 787 to investigate the electrical issues, till date, Government of India has done nothing. Nothing. nor the DGCA. We have been insistently saying there is a problem with the electrical system of the aircraft. Please investigate. Please investigate. Are they waiting for a second accident to happen? That way, I would give a lot of credit to the Airbus, which came out a few days back on the 28th. They issued a advisory along with EASA that all the 320s which have got a new software upgrade, they should go to the old software, because one incident took place where the aircraft lost height on 30th of October, can come to Newark. So they immediately acted, and all around the world, 6,400 aircraft which were affected were told they cannot fly beyond 30th of November. Very, very good step taken by the Airbus industry in the interest of safety. What is going on? What is going on?
Okay, Amit wanted to come in, and then last comments on what happens next. Amit, Captain Amit.
Yeah, regarding the flight recorders again, a statement was made in the Parliament last month that all the recommendations of the Mangalore accident 2010 and of the Calicut accident 2020 have been implemented, except for a couple of them which were rejected. And two main were, the second part is that of the recommendation of the Calicut accident was that the AAIB needs to have their in-house lab with software and hardware, and all the OEMs whose aircraft are flying in India must provide literature, software, and hardware of the equipment required for any investigation. And the minister has made a statement that this recommendation has been implemented. If it has been implemented, then what was the need to get equipment from US if that has been provided? Then the second part was that AIB must have a human factors or a medical expert permanently on their rolls. And if you see this panel, they have a human factors expert, that is what they say, but AIB does not have. If you look at AIB employees, they do not have. So if that recommendation was implemented, then why was a consultant taken as a member of the panel?
You have questioned the composition of the panel, but you've also spoken about the language and how the language has been used selectively to create a narrative, Captain Amit. If you want to just talk about that as we take last comments, I'll start with you, then come to Captain Randhawa, and I'll come to you, Captain Khalid, as well. Amit.
So language is important. An average reader will not notice how cleverly the words have been used here, and how data source has been quoted at times, and most critical parts not been quoted. So it is basically a mind game, psychological game, which AIB is not capable of. So this report definitely has some foreign hand in it during the preparation. That's why I'm saying it's probably that both are colluding. Language, for example, readers of crime-style accident narrative were 5 times more likely to recommend punishment than those who have systems. If there's a systems problem, then people do not get so aggravated. But if there's a person involved, then reaction changes, it increases 5 times. In this accident report, preliminary report, the report gives, as per the flight recorder, the airborne time was 39, very accurate. Then the most critical part, that the maximum speed recorded, it is not the actual speed, it may have gone beyond. What was last recorded is 180 knots at about time, which is again very uncertain. And
so it alternates between facts and conjecture.
Yeah, so immediately thereafter,
or last documented or last available information.
Correct. So it says immediately thereafter, engine 1 and engine 2 fuel cutoff switches transitioned. So immediately thereafter, again, it is a very casual link. So we have a fact as per EFR, then the most important part does not quote a source, wherein preliminary report needs to quote a source. Then again, after 10 seconds, the EFR comes back that the fuel control switches moved from cutoff to run as per EFR.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Again, the paraphrasing of the CVR that is there. And lastly, which nobody will pick up, is the position of the flaps and landing gear. So when the crash happened, a lot of people said that flaps were not deployed. So this report says, as per EFR, which is the flight recorder, the flaps were at position 5, and which is also confirmed by the lever, which was found, and the lever position was at 5 detent. So it is confirmed. The next statement immediately after this is the landing gear lever was found in down position. So it does not quote the EFR, the flight recorder, because that landing gear position reveals that there was an electrical problem right at the beginning when the aircraft took off. Why the landing gear could not be retracted can be seen by the tilt of the landing gear. So the process is when the landing gear lever is selected up, the aircraft landing gear position is tilted up. So during the retraction cycle, the landing gear position moves down and then goes inside the bay. So the CVR, the CCTV footage shows the landing gear in a tilt up position, which means the lever has not been selected up. And the later images show the landing gear position in the down position, which means it was selected up, but there was an electrical disturbance which interrupted the cycle. So these visual evidences are very clearly pointing towards a technical failure before the fuel control switches move to cutoff. So as soon as the airborne, and another important fact which nails it is the ACARS report. That is a digital data transmission from the aircraft to a ground station or from a ground station to the aircraft. Now the records show that at 080838, a second before the aircraft got airborne, there was a message sent by the aircraft to a ground station that there is a technical advisory regarding the engine. At 39, when the aircraft got airborne, there was a reply from the ground station to the aircraft inquiring more information about the fault. But after that, there is total silence, which means there was an electrical interruption and the data transmission stopped. So
lots
happened well before.
Yeah, lots of unanswered questions. Captain Randhawa, your closing thoughts?
I absolutely agree with what Amit is saying. That very pertinent point, which has been brought out, that the data which went through the ACARS to the manufacturer, that was the problem occurring within the technical systems at 38 seconds. And at 39, before getting airborne, it has received, and thereafter there has been a lot of electrical problems. Now, one thing is very clear, that whether this electrical problem was occurring during the takeoff run, whether it occurred just after takeoff, because the first action should have been that the pilot would have selected the landing gear up. It has not gone up. That means the aircraft has not gone from ground mode to air mode. That is one. Secondly, the RAT will not deploy in the ground mode. It will deploy only when it's in the air mode. Now, these are all the issues which we have been insisting that they need to be investigated. The electrical issues with the TMCA, whether it's with the fuel control valves. So this is basically electrical systems problem, and we have been also insisting that on the same day there was a flight which was AOG in Vienna, where the electrical bay got flooded with the water leaking from the toilet into the electrical bay. Passengers had to be deplaned, and the aircraft was AOG. I don't know whether Air India reported this matter. This was on the same date of the accident. So and there have been earlier cases in 1787 where there has been leakage of water from the toilet or from the galley into the electrical system, and it has been causing short circuits. So everything is pointing towards that. Whereas the wording, what Amit rightly said of the preliminary report, it is inappropriate for an inquiry of this nature being held, and it is at the instructions, maybe under the influence of the investigators from the US, because all three companies which are involved, Boeing, Honeywell, and GE, they're all American companies.
Yeah.
And there is large thing at stake, because almost more than 1,100 787s are flying, and this is the first accident which has taken place. The Boeing does not understand one thing, that they should have learned a lesson from 737 MAX, the first accident, the second accident happening. Why are we propagating safety? We are propagating safety to avoid any further accident which takes place, and a justice to be given to the families of the people who have died in this crash. Unfortunately, it is not happening. If you see the recommendations of the Calicut accident, what Amit just said, they should have had a full-fledged lab. Why it was not there?
Yeah.
So no questions asked, and the best part is, every bureaucrat, everyone is not held accountable in this country. Why people have not been held accountable for this lapse?
So Captain Randhawa, before I give Captain Khalid the closing word, what now? In court, you're trying to advance the date. If you don't manage to do that, what are you thinking of doing?
I am trying my little best. I'm talking to my attorneys yesterday, and so should I think Amit also do that. We are submitting a plea to the Supreme Court that we need to hasten up the process, and if a date as early as can be given before the Christmas. So that is our plea. Whether the Supreme Court grants us that.
I mean, I hope the Supreme Court thinks of the fact that Sumeet's father is really in the twilight of his life fighting this battle. Captain Khalid, I hope it doesn't drag on for years. And in the meantime, you may have, as you said, the probe panel, which all of you feel is discredited, submitting or claiming its own findings. Captain Khalid, closing comments to you, sir.
Yeah. So, like I said, that, truth is important. And if the truth is not presented, then it will have contradictions. Okay, like they have, Amit and Captain Randhawa have pointed out the contradictions that need to be explained. I would bring out another point that has been actually documented by the AAIB. There was one more very critical system that did not function, and it is called ELT, Emergency Locator Transmitter. Now, this particular equipment is a search and rescue equipment such that, in any kind of an accident, because of impact, water, heat, it gets the ELT starts to transmit, and it will help from the satellite to track down the wreckage. When the Malaysian aircraft was missing for 30 days, we were looking for the ELT transmissions. Even at 35,000 feet under the sea, it will continue to work. There is a switch on the overhead panel, which is the ELT switch that is in the arm position. And no matter what you do through the fuel switch to anything, in case of crash, the ELT will send out emergency signal on 1 to 1.5 or what 246 or 243 megahertz. There are frequencies. In this case, the ELT did not function despite a complete crash. It couldn't have been a more structure coming onto this. Now,
and had the ELT functioned, what would have happened?
Nothing. It would have just said that there is an electrical equipment that was working normally, right? And it is okay. This electrical equipment is not connected to any of the evidence that we have placed on the table, and it did not function. When will it not function? When the aircraft, when the system is electrically zero, right? To the best of my knowledge, there is no switch to put it off. You can just take out the electricity power, or it can be arm or on. Most of the aircraft have that. Why did this equipment not fail? Now people have to explain another 10 pages of story as to say why ELT did not function. Okay, they are two different, and it is emergency search and rescue equipment. It must be serviceable. It cannot be the aircraft cannot depart without it. If it is put it to off, there will be a message saying ELT, emergency locator transmitter. location transmitter. Did not function in this case, which is very strange. Very strange. This particular equipment, if you drop it on the ground, it will continue to transmit and you cannot switch it off. Once activated, it cannot, there is no off switch in it. You cannot switch it off. So this
these
equipment, again,
Yeah.
it is once again telling what Amit was saying and Captain Randhawa was saying, that the electrical malfunction, okay, is shouting through all doors, just that we don't want to listen to it. Okay.
Well, yeah.
And the second thing, and the second thing, AIB has come out with a very, very clear photograph of the rat deployed. Right?
Yeah.
That photograph, you don't have an access. I don't have an access. I have never seen that angle. Right? If AIB is kind enough to give 3 seconds prior, 2 seconds prior from the same camera, you would know where the problem is. Right?
Yeah.
This particular image is from a camera that we don't have an access. Okay. And this is the one which 100% says that the rat is deployed. What about 1 second before? What about 2 seconds before? What about 3 seconds before? And if the rat was deployed earlier, then a lot of theories will go wrong. Because if even 1 second earlier rat was deployed, that means the engine was cut, then the aircraft couldn't have been climbing the way it was climbing. So the whole story will change. But we don't have that.
Yeah, there are a mountain of questions. All I will say in the end is that, somebody has to go on asking these questions. And as Sumeet's father said to me, he said, it's not only about the families of those who died on the plane. It's not only about my son. It's about all of us, those of us who fly every single day to get from point A to point B, right? It's about our safety. And I think the public needs to be much more invested in raising questions and demanding the truth. We leave it there. I have to thank the father of Captain Sumeet Sabharwal for placing his trust in us and Mojo Story, for talking to us. And I hope his words will trigger a new conversation. Thank you so much, Captain Singh, Captain Randhawa, and Captain Khalid. And most of all, thank you to Pushkar Raj Sabharwal for talking to us. To our audience, thank you, and see you tomorrow.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.